Today I will be going over Sold by Patricia McCormick. So I am going to start off with the book summary first and foremost. So this book really revolves around a young Nepesian girl named Lakshmi. She lives in Nepal within a very poor family, and a monsoon, which is a shift in wind that often causes very rainy seasons or very dry seasons, demolishes her family farm. Her stepfather then sells her into what her and her mother both believe to be work in the city as a maid for a wealthy family, but instead she was trafficked into a brothel in India. The thing I'd like to cover are the characters, all within the book. So the main character, Lakshmi, she's a 13-year-old girl. She lives in Nepal. I also read in the book that she brushes her teeth with a twig from a neem tree. Her father also died. I don't know when for sure. There was just this one quote that stuck with me that she said was, "How odd is it that I am undone by a simple kindness of a small boy with a yellow pencil?" Because of all she went through, a boy with a simple pencil is what brought light to her, like brought joy, in a sense. Moving on to the other characters, she had a baby brother. We do not know the name. And her mother, which she called Amma, she was very adamant about her daughter staying in school. One of the things she said was, "You must stay in school no matter what your stepfather says." And also another thing, when this quote showed up, it kind of showed up at the beginning of the book, so it was kind of some form of like foreshadowing that really like played into who her stepfather was as a person. Another character was Gita, which was her friend. We really only heard about her. We never really got any like context from her, but she went off to work as a maid to a wealthy family to make money for her family at home. Another one was Talia, which was her goat at home, and her stepfather. He was a gambler and a drunk. He wasn't very like supportive with the family. He kind of just did whatever and got away with it because he was the man of the house. Auntie Bimla, she's the one that went out and found her and coaxed the stepdad into selling her and brought her halfway to the brothel, which then they met Uncle Husband. Uncle Husband was the second person to help Lakshmi on her travels to the brothel, and he's the one that got her through the Indian border, and then was the one who eventually sold her to Mumtaz. And then Mumtaz, she is the brothel owner. She's the one in charge. She's the one that buys Lakshmi. And Pushpa, she was one of the girls in the brothel, and she's the one that had the boy. At first, Lakshmi called him the David Beckham boy because of his t-shirt, but eventually learned that his name was Harnish. And then Shahana, Gina, and Anita were all girls in the brothel that were there before her that she ended up meeting. The Americans, there were bad Americans and there were good Americans. So the bad Americans would come in drunk and would take advantage of her and just wouldn't care, and that's why she feared the Americans. And then there are the good ones. The good ones are the ones that eventually help her and get her out of where she is. She had to learn to trust them after dealing with the bad Americans. Another thing is the setting. The setting is based in Nepal at the beginning of the story, in her home, which is a hut with her family. But as the story progresses, she then travels through places to get to India. So it kind of like progressively goes from one point to the other. She travels, I don't know exactly where she traveled in between to get from point A to point B, but it started in Nepal, ended in India. And then moving on to the point of view, the story was told in first person, which means the main character, Lakshmi, was the one telling the story. She talks about what happens to her and how she feels and what she sees. It's almost like, in a sense, that you're in her head. I see it as her own little diary in her head. So because of this, you really understand what she's going through on a deeper level. That this was written makes the book super emotional because you feel everything she feels. The plot of the story, it's quite simple. It's a captivating novel about a young girl that is sold into human trafficking, and as we follow her journey through her thoughts, feelings, hardships, successes, and struggles, and what she goes through mentally and physically in captivity, we watch as she seeks freedom and hope throughout this book as well. And then going over into the theme, I believe that the theme is resilience, because even though she went through so much, she still kept fighting and never fully gave up on what she was fighting for and her freedom as well. Another theme was exploration. I think this because she was seeing so much within her travels that she had never heard or seen before when she was living in her small village, such as a TV, the American language, cars, trucks, buses, and a lot more. Another one would be hope. I say this because this novel goes on to explore the brutality of human trafficking and the resilience of one's human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering, and the hopes for freedom for a better future despite the odds. Now I'd like to read an excerpt from the book that is a very significant moment within. It is on page 247 through 250. "Do you want to leave here?" he says. "I cannot answer. How do I know if he's a good man? What if he's like the drunken American? What if he's like the ones Anita talks about, the ones who make young girls walk naked in the street? I can take you to a clean place, he says. Look, he says. Pictures of the shelter, other girls. He holds out a silver box so I can see the tiny TV in the back. He pushes a button. There's a tiny image of a Napoleon girl smiling back at me. He pushes the button again. There are girls in school uniforms sitting at a desk. Girls fetching water at the spring. The man turns off his digital magic machine. I am afraid, all of a sudden, that he's leaving. I wish there was a way to say something to keep this American here a little longer. I reach under my bed and pull out the American storybook, the one Harnash gave me. I hold it out towards the American. He cocks his head to one side, puzzled. I point to a picture. Elmo, I say. He nods slowly. Ice cream, I say. Yes, he says. Very good. America. The man smiles. I do not mean to, but I'm smiling at this queer-looking man, smiling and trembling at the magic, not of his digital image talking box, but of the magic of the handful of nonsense words to keep him here a little longer. The American man whispers. His way of speaking my language is hurried now as he reads from the battered Napoleon word book. I see that it has an image of the flying bird on its cover, and I say a silent prayer of thanks to the street boy whose name I will never know. What the fat woman does to you here is bad, he says. Very bad. I nod. She cannot force you to do these things, he says. This American is not so magical after all, I decide. He doesn't know about Montez leather strap, and the gundas, and the chain on the door. I will come back for you, he says. I will come back with other men, good men from this country, fathers and uncles who want to help, policemen who are not friends of Montez. We will take you away from here. This was too good to believe. You must believe me, he says. I shut my eyes tight. I do not want to believe. I believed that the stranger in the yellow cloud dress was talking to me. The city to work as a maid. I believed that Uncle Husband would protect me from the bad city people. I believed that if I worked hard enough here at Happiness House, I could pay down my debt. And I believed that it was all worth it for the sake of my family. I was too afraid to believe him. And so I'm going back to believe what this strange pink man is a dream, a cruel trick of the mind. I'm going to believe this when I open my eyes. He will be gone. I count to 100. Count to 100 again. I open my eyes. He is still there, gripping the battered Napoleon word book. The clean place, I say. I want to go there. I think this is a very pivotal moment in this book because this is when she really realizes that she can trust the American who offered to help her. This moment symbolizes her shift from fear and hopelessness to bravery and the possibility of freedom, representing the bordering theme of hope even in darkness. It is a turning point and underscores the resilience of a human spirit and the importance of kindness and support in breaking the cycle of exploitation. Why do I recommend this book? For one, I really enjoyed the story in general. I just hope it sheds a lot of light on the harsh reality of human trafficking. Even though a lot of people might not fully understand this, really does bring a lot of awareness to the subject, though through a more emotional and thoughtful, provoking way. I also think Lakshmi's story is very encouraging because even though she's a fictional character, it really does show what the human spirit can do as she faces incredible and unimaginable challenges throughout the story. She still pushes through and thinks it's really makes the reader understand the importance of perseverance and more or less the will to survive. Another thing is that I really like the writing style. I really enjoy how the chapters are short because sometimes when I'm reading a book and the chapters are 20 plus pages long, I tend to lose focus. So I thought the author did a really good job at getting the reader's attention by shortening the chapters because you really get into the book and it just feels like you're not even reading that much at all. There's also a lot of educational value in this book. Even though it does cover some pretty graphic subjects, I think it's very good that the way they bring light and attention to these subjects because not a lot of us know what it's like. The world just makes a great learning opportunity and brings a lot more information to how others live. So overall, I really do recommend this book. Even though it is a tough read because of what happens in the book, I think it's one of those type of books that everyone should read. Kind of makes you rethink your life and be more grateful for what you have because others might not be able to have the opportunities that are handed to us. I think everyone should read this book because it really is an eye-opener. So this is the end of my book talk. I do highly suggest that you give this book a read, and I hope you enjoyed.